Dr. Elias Ward had spent the last 4 months traveling between small planets in the Andromeda sector. His mission was to study rare plants that could be useful for medicine back on Earth. The days were long and sometimes lonely, but he loved the work. Every planet felt like a new mystery waiting to be solved. On this particular day, his ship had landed on a trading moon called Veltra 9. The air there was warm and heavy, filled with the smell of strange spices, roasted roots, and something he couldn't identify. The locals, tall, thin beings with shimmering skin, moved quickly through the crowded marketplace, carrying baskets, bags, and even live animals for trade. Elias walked slowly, scanning each stall with curiosity. Bright fabrics, glowing fruits, tools made of metals he didn't recognize. All of it fascinated him. He was about to stop at a booth selling crystal seeds when a sudden noise caught his attention. It was a whimper, soft, almost lost in the chatter of the crowd, but it pulled at something deep inside him. He turned his head, searching for the source. That's when he saw it. At the far end of the market, in a shadowy corner, stood a small cage made of rough, metal bars. Inside was a creature unlike anything Elias had ever seen. It was about the size of a medium dog from Earth, but its fur shimmered in shades of silver and blue. Two small sets of folded ears lay flat against its head, and its large eyes glowed faintly, almost as if lit from within. The creature was pressed tightly against the back of the cage, trembling. It looked frightened, weak, and hopeless. Elias's heart clenched. He had seen exotic animals in markets before, but this one felt different. There was something in its eyes, a desperate, pleading look that made it hard to breathe. Before he could step closer, an alien vendor walked up to the cage. The vendor was tall and broad, with scaled skin and wide, flat nostrils. He shouted something in his own language to the crowd and pointed at the creature. Elias didn't understand the words, but he understood the actions. The vendor lifted a large cooking pot and set it beside a fire pit. Steam began to rise from the water inside. Elias's stomach twisted. He realized with a jolt that this wasn't a pet for sale. This was meant to be food. The crowd began to gather. Some aliens pointed at the creature, nodding as if approving. The vendor's choice. The animal's eyes darted back and forth, then locked onto Elias. For a moment, it was as if time froze. Those glowing eyes seemed to speak without words. Please. Elias had faced dangerous situations before. Storms on uncharted planets, broken equipment in deep space. But this felt different. This was personal. Every part of him told him to turn, away to mind his own business. After all, this was another culture's tradition. Interfering could cause problems. But he couldn't. Something deep inside told him that if he walked away now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. He stepped forward, weaving through the crowd until he stood in front of the vendor's stall. The heat from the fire warmed his face. "Excuse me," Elias said slowly, speaking in Galactic Standard, the universal language used by traders. "How much for the creature?" The vendor blinked at him, clearly surprised. Then he laughed, a deep, rough sound. "You want it?" he asked, his voice thick with accent. "Not for pet, for pot." "I know," Elias said, his voice steady. "But I want to take it. Alive." The vendor frowned. "Why? It is food, good meat, soft fur. Why waste on human?" Elias kept his eyes on the cage. "Because it's not waste to me." The vendor shook his head, muttering something Elias couldn't catch. Then he named a price so high it made Elias blink. The cost wasn't just in money. It included rare supplies, things Elias had collected over months of travel. The kind of things he'd planned to trade for important research materials. Still, when he looked at the small, trembling creature, he knew the decision had already been made. The vendor seemed amused now, as if testing how far Elias would go. "Maybe you give me something better," the alien said, leaning closer. "Something rare. Something you keep for yourself." Elias thought of the crystal in his pack, a bright, multifaceted gem he had found on a remote moon. It was rare enough to trade for almost anything. He had been saving it for an important deal that could help his research back on Earth. He swallowed. Losing it would mean losing months of work. But the sound of the creature's soft whimper cut through his hesitation like a blade. He glanced around. The fire under the pot was burning stronger now. The vendor was clearly growing impatient. The crowd was shifting, waiting for the outcome. Every second mattered. Without another word, Elias reached into his pack and pulled out the crystal. Light danced across its surface, sending tiny rainbows onto the vendor's scaled hands. The alien's eyes widened, greed flickering across his face. "You give this," the vendor said slowly, "and you take the animal." Elias nodded. His throat felt tight, but his decision was clear. The vendor grinned, snapping his fingers. A smaller alien came forward and unlocked the cage. The moment the door swung open, the creature darted out, so fast that Elias barely had time to react. But instead of running into the crowd, it rushed straight toward him, pressing itself against his legs. Elias bent down and scooped it into his arms. It was shockingly light, its body trembling with fear and exhaustion. The vendor took the crystal and tucked it away with a satisfied smile. "Foolish human," he muttered, though Elias wasn't sure if it was meant as an insult or simply a statement. The crowd began to drift away, losing interest now that the spectacle was over. Elias didn't wait. Holding the creature close, he turned and walked quickly through the market, away from the smell of smoke and boiling water. The further they got from the stall, the slower his steps became. He could feel the creature's rapid heartbeat against his chest. It didn't make a sound, just buried its face against him as if afraid the vendor might come back. Elias knew that his day had just taken a turn he hadn't planned for. He also knew that no matter what challenges came next, he had made the right choice. Because sometimes, doing the right thing wasn't about science or research. Sometimes it was about a life, one small, fragile life that needed saving. Elias didn't stop walking until the noise of the market faded behind him. The air grew cooler as he entered the quieter streets near the spaceport. The tall stone buildings here cast long shadows, shielding him and the small creature in his arms from the hot sun of Veltra 9. He could feel the animal's tiny heart still pounding against his chest. Every few steps it would twitch, as if bracing for something bad to happen. Elias slowed his pace, speaking softly. "It's okay. You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you." The creature lifted its head slightly, its glowing eyes, watching him closely. Its fur shimmered in the low light, shifting between silver and pale blue with every movement. Elias had seen many strange animals in his travels, but this one felt different. It wasn't just its appearance, it was the way it looked at him. There was intelligence there, and something that almost felt like trust. Still, Elias knew he had a problem. He couldn't simply walk back to his ship with a live animal from another planet. Interstellar law was strict about transporting alien wildlife. Some species carried diseases. Others were considered endangered or sacred. Without the right permits, he could face heavy fines, or worse. But the thought of leaving the creature here on a world where it had nearly ended up in a cooking pot was unbearable. He reached his small ship, the Sol Runner, parked in one of the private docking bays. The security scanner recognized his ID, and the heavy metal door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the familiar scent of metal and recycled air greeted him. He stepped into the control room and set the creature down gently on the padded bench beside the console. The animal immediately curled up, keeping its gaze on him. It made a soft humming sound, low and steady, almost like a cat's purr, but more musical. Elias had never heard anything like it. He retrieved a pouch of protein rations from a storage compartment. These were designed for humans, but he had learned that most small animals could eat them without harm. He placed a piece in front of the creature and sat down nearby. At first, it didn't move. It sniffed the food, then glanced up at him as if asking permission. Elias nodded, smiling. "Go on. It's yours." The creature took a cautious bite. Its eyes widened slightly, and soon it was eating in small, quick mouthfuls. Elias watched, feeling both relieved and curious. The way it ate reminded him of a street dog he had rescued back on Earth years ago. That dog had been thin, skittish, and afraid of everyone, until it realized it was finally safe. Once the food was gone, the creature licked its mouth and gave a soft whine. Elias reached out a hand slowly, not wanting to startle it. To his surprise, it didn't pull away. Instead, it leaned forward, pressing its head gently against his palm. Its fur was softer than he expected, almost weightless, like touching a cloud. For the first time since leaving the market, Elias allowed himself to relax. But the relief didn't last long. His ship's comm panel beeped, a priority signal. He walked over and activated it. A holographic image appeared above the console, showing his colleague Dr. Marin Cho, who was stationed on a nearby moon. "Elias," she said, her voice quick and urgent. "I heard about what happened at the Veltra 9 market. Word's already spreading. Some traders are saying you interfered with a vendor's property." Elias frowned. "Property? It was alive, Marin. And they were about to—" He stopped himself. He didn't want to say it out loud with the creature listening. "I couldn't just walk away." Marin sighed. "I understand. But you know the law. If someone reports this to the Planetary Council, they might demand the creature back, and if it's classified as a native species under protection, you could be in trouble." Elias glanced at the bench, where the animal was now curled up again, eyes half closed. "I'm not giving it back," he said quietly. "Not to them." Marin hesitated, then leaned closer to the holographic feed. "All right, but you need to figure out what it is, fast. If you can prove it's not a restricted species, you might be able to keep it safe legally. I'll send you some scanning data from the xenobiology archives." The feed flickered off, leaving Elias in the quiet hum of the ship. He returned to the bench and sat down. The creature opened one eye and tilted its head, as if sensing his worry. "You're going to need a name," Elias said softly. He thought for a moment, then smiled. "How about Luma? Your fur glows like moonlight." The creature, Luma, made that same soft hum again, almost as if agreeing. Elias knew he couldn't stay on Veltra 9 much longer. The marketplace gossip would travel fast, and the vendor might try to reclaim what he'd lost. Some traders had connections with local enforcers who didn't care much for outsiders, especially humans. He began running a basic bioscan on Luma, using a handheld device that analyzed DNA and vital signs. The results would take a while, but it was a start. As the scanner worked, Elias noticed something strange. Luma wasn't just sitting still, she was watching him closely, her eyes following his every movement. When he reached for a water pouch, she mimicked the tilt of his head. When he leaned forward to check the scan, she shifted forward too. It was as if she was trying to understand him. The thought made Elias pause. What if this creature wasn't just some wild animal? What if she was more intelligent than he'd realized? He didn't have the answer yet. But one thing was certain, every second he spent here on Veltra 9 was risky. He needed to decide his next move quickly. He stood and moved to the control panel. "All right, Luma," he said quietly. "We're getting out of here before anyone decides to come looking for you." The ship's engines rumbled to life, filling the small cabin with vibration. Luma lifted her head, ears twitching. She didn't look afraid, just curious. As the Sol runner lifted off the docking platform and rose into the violet sky, Elias felt a mix of relief and determination. The decision he'd made in the marketplace was just the beginning. Now came the hard part, keeping Luma safe no matter what it cost. He didn't know yet where this journey would lead, but deep down, he was certain of one thing. Saving her wasn't just a moment's impulse. It was a promise, and promises Elias Ward always kept. The Sol runner drifted smoothly through the quiet of space, leaving Veltra 9 far behind. Stars glittered outside the viewing window, and a soft blue glow from the control panels filled the cabin. Elias finally allowed himself to breathe more easily. For now, no one was chasing them. Luma sat curled on the bench beside him, her glowing eyes half shut, as if she was finally starting to relax. Every so often, her ears twitched at the faint hum of the engines. Elias couldn't help but smile. She seemed calmer here, away from the noise and smells of the market. The bioscanner on the console beeped softly, signaling that the results were ready. Elias picked it up and began reading. The display showed Luma's DNA structure, unlike anything recorded in the xenobiology archives he had. Her genetic code suggested she was a rare species, possibly from an uncharted moon or deep forest region of a known planet. But there was something else. Her neural readings were unusually high for an animal. It meant she wasn't just intelligent. She might be capable of complex thought, maybe even communication in her own way. Elias leaned back in his chair, thinking. "Who are you really, Luma?" he murmured. Luma tilted her head at the sound of her name, letting out that soft, musical hum again. It wasn't random. Elias could feel it. She made the sound at certain times almost like a response. Before he could think further, the ship's proximity alarm chimed. Elias's heart jumped. He checked the radar. A small vessel was approaching, fast from behind. It wasn't a patrol ship, but its speed and direct path made it suspicious. Elias knew better than to wait and see. He tapped the thruster controls, accelerating toward a dense asteroid field ahead. The Sol runner was small and nimble, perfect for weaving through tight spaces. The other ship followed, closing the distance. He glanced at Luma. She was watching him, her body tense, but not panicked. "Hang on," Elias said, gripping the controls. The asteroid field loomed ahead, massive rocks spinning slowly in the darkness. Elias guided the ship into the maze, weaving between jagged edges and shadows. The pursuing vessel tried to keep up, but it was larger, and its turns were slower. Elias dodged left, then right, diving through a narrow gap between two tumbling boulders. The other ship hesitated, trying to find a safer path. That was all Elias needed. He kicked the Sol runner into full speed, darting through the last cluster of rocks until open space appeared ahead. The radar showed no sign of pursuit. Elias exhaled, his shoulders relaxing. Luma padded over to his seat and placed one paw gently on his arm. He looked down at her, feeling that strange connection again, as if she knew exactly what had just happened. "Looks like someone didn't want to say goodbye to you," Elias said softly. "Or maybe they just didn't want to lose what you're worth." He set the ship's course toward a quiet refueling station on the edge of a nearby system. If he could get there, he could stock up on supplies and maybe send a secure message to Dr. Marin for more help. Hours later, the Sol runner docked at the small station. It was quiet here. No busy crowds, no loud markets. Only a few ships were parked, and the station lights cast a gentle glow over the docking bay. Elias opened the hatch, and Luma followed him out, her nose twitching as she sniffed the recycled air. He carried a small satchel and walked toward the supply counter. The station clerk, a short, round alien with greenish skin, glanced at Luma with wide eyes. "That's not something you see every day," the clerk said slowly. She's a friend, Elias replied, keeping his tone casual. And she's not for sale? The clerk raised his hands in mock surrender. I wasn't asking. Just be careful. Some people will pay a lot for rare creatures. Elias nodded. He was already painfully aware of that. After purchasing food packs, water cartridges, and some medical supplies, Elias returned to the ship. Luma had stayed close the entire time, her glowing eyes darting around as if memorizing the new environment. Back, aboard the Sol Runner, Elias decided to test something. He pulled out a small metal sphere from one of his storage crates. It was a puzzle device. Twist it the right way and it would unlock to reveal a hidden compartment. He placed it in front of Luma. She sniffed it, then tapped it lightly with her paw. For a moment, she just studied it, her ears twitching. Then, to Elias's surprise, she began nudging and rotating it with surprising precision. Within minutes, there was a soft click, and the sphere opened. Elias stared. You just solved that." Luma let out her hum, this time a little louder, almost playful. Elias leaned back, a mix of amazement and concern filling his mind. If she could solve puzzles, she was far more intelligent than most animals. That also meant whoever had been keeping her in that cage either didn't know or didn't care. That night, as the ship floated quietly in the darkness of space, Elias lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Luma was curled up at his side, her soft hum a steady background sound. He thought about the vendor in the market, the ship that had chased them, and the way Luma had solved that puzzle. She wasn't just a rare pet. She was something special, and that made her valuable and in danger. Elias knew this wasn't going to be a short journey. It was going to be a fight to keep her safe. But he also knew he wasn't turning back. Somewhere, out there was the truth about where she came from, and he was determined to find it. Days passed as the Sol Runner traveled through quiet stretches of space. Elias kept the ship away from busy trade routes, avoiding places where word of Luma might have spread. The stars outside the window looked calm and peaceful, but Elias knew trouble could appear at any moment. During this time, something unexpected happened. Luma began to act less like a frightened creature and more like a companion. At first, she stayed close only when they were eating or resting. But soon, she followed Elias around the ship wherever he went. If he worked at the control console, she would sit beside his chair. If he went to the storage area, she would pad quietly after him, her glowing fur casting soft light on the metal floor. At night, when the ship's lights dimmed, she would curl up on the floor near his bunk, her hum filling the silence like a gentle lullaby. Elias had been alone on long trips before, but with Luma there, the ship felt different, warmer, somehow. One afternoon, while the ship cruised through a wide region of empty space, Elias decided it was time for another scan. He wanted to learn as much about her as possible before making any decisions about where to go next. He set the scanner to a deeper analysis, focusing on her brain activity. Luma didn't seem to mind. She sat patiently while the device emitted a soft light. The results made Elias pause. Her neural patterns didn't just show intelligence, they showed recognition. Certain parts of her brain were lighting up in ways similar to how a human brain responded when understanding speech. "You can understand me, can't you?" Elias asked quietly. Luma tilted her head, ears lifting. Then she made a short, melodic different from her usual soft sound, almost like a reply. Elias leaned forward. "If you can make that sound again." Luma did, her eyes fixed on his. It wasn't proof of language, but it was enough for Elias to feel certain she understood more than most animals ever could. That night, as they drifted near the edge of a gas cloud, Elias couldn't sleep. He sat at the control console thinking about their situation. Keeping Luma hidden was one thing, but if someone like the vendor, or worse, a wealthy collector, discovered she was intelligent, the danger would be even greater. He considered contacting Dr. Marin again, but the risk of interception was high. Instead, he decided to head toward a small moon called Ortis 3. It was home to a research station known for studying alien life in protected environments. If anyone could help confirm Luma's origins safely, it would be them. The trip would take 2 days. Elias spent the time teaching Luma small things. He'd tap on the table twice, and she'd tap her paw twice in return. He'd roll a small ball across the floor, and she'd push it back with surprising accuracy. By the second evening, she could follow simple gestures: come, stay, or move aside. Every time she got it right, her eyes would brighten, and she'd make her musical hum as if proud of herself. Elias found himself talking to her more, telling her about places he'd been and things he'd seen. She would sit quietly, watching him as if she understood every word. But peace didn't last. On the final approach to Ortis 3, the ship's sensors picked up movement behind them, another vessel closing in. Elias's stomach sank. The ship wasn't broadcasting identification. He adjusted their course, pretending not to notice. The other vessel adjusted too, matching their turn. "They found us again," Elias muttered. Luma looked up at him, her ears twitching at the tension in his voice. He considered making a run for it, but the moon was only half an hour away. If he could just reach its security perimeter, they'd be safe. The research station was protected by the Interstellar Conservation Treaty, meaning no one could take Luma without proof of ownership and a long legal process. The pursuing ship drew closer. Elias pushed the Sol Runner's engines to full, the hum of the ship deepening. The stars outside streaked into thin lines as they raced forward, but the other vessel was faster. Soon, Elias could see it on the rear camera, a dark, angular ship built for speed. His mind flashed back to the vendor's face, and he realized this might not be a random pursuer. "Hold on, Luma," he said, gripping the controls. The moon of Ortis 3 came into view, a small, pale world surrounded by a thin ring of debris. Its research station shimmered faintly with defensive shields. Elias sent a distress signal on the protected channel, identifying himself and stating his purpose. "Requesting immediate docking clearance. I'm being pursued," he said into the station's voice crackled through the speakers. "Sol Runner, this is Ortis 3 station. You are cleared for emergency entry. Come straight to Bay 3. Elias angled the ship toward the docking bay. The pursuing vessel didn't fire weapons, likely because the station's shields would block them. But it kept pace, as if trying to pressure him. The moment the Sol Runner crossed the shield barrier, the pursuing ship slowed, then turned away. Whoever they were, they didn't want to tangle with the station's defenses. Inside the bay, Elias powered down the engines and turned to Luma. She was standing now, her glowing fur brighter than usual, her gaze fixed on him. "We made it," he said with a tired smile. As the docking ramp lowered, 2 station officers in clean white uniforms approached. One of them, a tall woman with silver hair, looked at Luma with raised eyebrows. "That's unusual," she said. "And you say she was about to be served at a market?" Elias nodded. "I need to make sure she's safe, and I think she's more than just an animal." The woman exchanged a glance with her partner. "Then you've come to the right place. Let's get her scanned." Luma stayed close to Elias as they followed the officers deeper into the station. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant, and the floors were polished to a shine. For the first time in days, Elias felt a flicker of hope. Here, maybe, they could finally learn the truth. Inside Ortis 3 station, Elias followed the 2 officers into a clean, bright lab. Luma stayed close, her glowing fur casting gentle light across the polished floor. She sniffed the air curiously, but she didn't move away from him. It was clear. She trusted him completely. The officers guided Elias and Luma to a scanning room filled with advanced equipment. One of the machines was shaped like a tall cylinder with softly glowing panels. The other officer explained it as a full bioscan and neural mapping unit. Elias could feel his heart beat faster. This was it, the moment they might finally understand Luma. He carefully placed Luma on the scanning platform. She looked up at him, her eyes wide but calm. Elias gently stroked her head. "It's okay. They're here to help you." The scan began. Soft lights circled around Luma and she emitted a gentle hum, different from her usual sound. It was almost musical, almost like she was reacting to the machine. Elias watched, fascinated. Every moment revealed more about her incredible biology. The results were astonishing. Luma wasn't just a rare species. Her neural patterns were far more advanced than most Earth animals. She displayed signs of problem-solving, memory retention, and emotional awareness. She could recognize faces, understand simple commands, and even respond to her own name with intentional sounds. The lead officer, the woman with silver hair, looked at Elias in surprise. This level of intelligence is extraordinary. She's not just an animal. She's sentient, in her own way. Elias exhaled slowly, a mix of relief and wonder filling him. "I thought so. She's been trying to communicate with me for days. She understands more than anyone would expect." The officer nodded. "That explains why she was kept in that market. Rare, intelligent creatures like this are highly valuable and often in danger." Elias felt a pang of worry. "So, she might still be in danger even here?" The officer smiled reassuringly. "Not here. This station is protected under the Interstellar Conservation Treaty. No one can take her without legal approval. She's safe for now." Luma made a soft hum, almost like a sigh of relief. Elias reached down to stroke her fur. "See? You're safe now, Luma. No one can hurt you here." For the first time since the market incident, Elias allowed himself to relax completely. He realized how much he had grown attached to her. She wasn't just a rescued animal. She was a companion, a friend, and someone who had trusted him with her life. Over the next few days, Luma adjusted to life in the station. Scientists and officers studied her carefully, but they treated her with kindness and patience. Elias spent most of his time with her, teaching her small games, giving her food, and simply enjoying her presence. Luma's intelligence continued to amaze everyone. She could operate simple devices, recognize patterns, and even learn from trial and error. But what impressed Elias the most was her personality. She was playful, curious, and affectionate. At night, she would curl up beside him, resting her glowing head on his lap as he drifted to sleep. One afternoon, as Elias worked on a research project, Luma climbed onto his workbench and nudged a stack of notes toward him. It was as if she was offering help. Elias laughed softly. "I think you want to be part of the research, too." The officers and scientists watching couldn't help but smile. Luma had clearly won everyone over. Her presence brought a sense of calm and joy to the station. After a week, the lead officer called Elias into a private office. She held a tablet with detailed reports. "We've confirmed her origin," she said. "Luma is from a previously uncharted moon, which is now under observation. Her species is rare and highly intelligent, and we're classifying her as a protected life form. Legally, she can stay with you, provided she remains under the station's supervision." Elias's eyes widened. "So, she can stay with me?" The officer nodded. "Yes. You saved her life, and now she can remain with someone she trusts. We'll handle the legal documentation." Relief washed over him. He thought back to the market, to the vendor, to the moment Luma had run into his arms. All the fear, all the risk, had led to this moment. That evening, Elias sat in the quiet lab. Luma curled against his side. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the darkness of space, calm and infinite. He gently stroked her shimmering fur. "You've been through so much," he whispered. "And now You're finally safe. We'll figure everything out together. From here on, Luma hummed softly, nuzzling closer. Elias felt a connection he had never experienced with any other living being. It wasn't just companionship. It was trust, gratitude, and an unspoken bond that didn't need words. In the days that followed, Elias and Luma became a familiar sight around the station. He trained her for simple communication using light, taps, gestures, and sounds. She learned quickly, responding with her own melodic hums. The scientists marveled at her abilities, recording her behavior to study how a non-human sentient species could interact with humans. For Elias, every moment with Luma reinforced a simple truth. Saving her had changed his life as much as it had saved hers. He had come to Veltra 9 for rare plants, for science, but he had left with something far more extraordinary. Months later, the station celebrated a special event, Luma's official recognition as a protected sentient creature. The announcement was made to interstellar authorities, and her story spread quietly among researchers and conservationists. The tale of the alien canine that had been seconds away from becoming dinner and the human who stepped in became an example of courage, compassion, and the bond between species. Elias looked at her that evening, her glowing eyes reflecting the soft lights of the lab. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" he said. Luma responded with a gentle hum, her way of saying yes. For the first time in his life, Elias felt certain of one thing. Sometimes, saving a life doesn't just change the other being, it changes you too. And in the quiet of the station, among the stars, they both knew that their journey together was just beginning.